It's our studios. It's Louis Live. Now here's your host, me, and Raphael Geller. Good evening, Raphael. How you doing?
Good. Pacers. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Pacers, 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 and a little more Pacers.
I said Miami in 6. Not worried about it.
You should be very worried about it.
They're going to take 2 in Indiana.
No, they're definitely.
Well, they might split.
Definitely not going to split. They're going to win. Indiana's going to win 2 in Indiana easily. In fact, I'm going to even go ahead and say that Indiana's going to win both games by at least 15 points.
Wow.
Yep. I said it last night. I said Indiana would win by 4 points last night on the show yesterday, and they won by 3 points. They should have won by way more. No one on whatever. We're going to examine the Heat with Clonari at 11:15 local time out in America. But let's get going. Our first guest will be Mark Silverman. We've had him on the show before. He's a great guy. He's from New York. We're going to talk to him. Ari's going to start talking to him about the Rangers. It's been a big theme here at Israel Sports Radio. Then I'm going to talk to him about the Knicks, and we'll talk some Yankees, Mets.
Yeah, the Rangers is almost the default team here in Israel. I feel like most of the people who follow hockey that like hockey are default Ranger fans because of the New York population. But they are having one heck of a run. Really, really incredible that they've gone through 2 really hard 7-game series, and now in the Eastern Conference Finals against the crosstown rivals. Well, I don't want to say crosstown. I don't know how far Jersey is, but. So basically, we're gonna dial up Mark Silverman right now, and we're really looking forward to this here on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio.
Right, and I'll introduce him for you guys.
So again,
hi,
hello?
Mark. Am I speaking with Mark Silverman?
Yes.
Hi, Mark. You're on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio on TuneIn. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing great. There's a lot of great stuff to get to regarding sports, especially in New York. So I think Ari's going to start off with some hockey talk.
Yeah, Mark, I want to talk about the Rangers because people compared this to the '94 team. They feel like there's a certain buzz similar to 1994, but the '94 team did not have to go the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, 7 games, including 2 triple overtime games in the last series. So I've asked this a lot. I'm going to ask this you as well. Do you think the Rangers might just run out of gas either in the Stanley Cup Finals or maybe a little short of the Stanley Cup Finals?
Well, I believe there's a statistic out there that says if a team has gone and played 7 games in the first 2 rounds, they've never gone on to win the Stanley Cup.
Right.
So there's certainly something about that, and stamina could play a role. I have watched most of the Ranger games this year. The one thing I will tell you is the Tortorella team is in very good shape. I look at it going, they played pretty well the first game against the Devils after playing the 7th game in with less than 2 days rest. They did the same thing after finishing with Ottawa. Less than 2 days, like a day and a half, to play the Caps game 1. They come out strong, very strong game 1. I think this team has the potential to buck that trend on the Stanley Cup winners. I think they are extremely hardworking as far as teams, and just everything that you see in games and in practice. They fight hard, and they're in shape.
Right, and we had Bob Hustler, I believe, Hustler from WFAN yesterday, and we really spent some time talking about it. And he was saying that this is something that's now a phenomenon in the city. Everyone is obsessed with the Rangers. I mean, it's more popular than the Yankees and the Knicks. Like he said that it's just Ranger buzz. Everyone's talking about the Rangers, especially after those amazing game. The Game 7, that was really a good game. Of course, all the overtime games. And just the season that the Rangers have had has been a special season. So could you touch up on that? What's it like right now in New York?
Certainly. Hockey is an interesting it's an interesting sport here in the U.S. It has its diehard followers, and it doesn't normally get the casual fan to embrace it. And during the year, the Rangers have been in first place for probably about 3/4 of the year. The diehard fans sell out the building, or they watch it on TV, but the casual fan doesn't get interested. I think now, getting halfway through the playoffs, now the buzz playing the Devils, Now the buzz, the comparison to 94 when they played the Devils in 94, New York is now woken up to hockey and has now embraced the hockey, and now it will be crazy from now until, it's over.
Right, and right now, of course, you guys, I don't know if I'm going to say you guys, but the Rangers are in a very interesting series with your neighbors, I guess, the New Jersey Devils, and that should be a great series as well. The first game was a 1-0 game, very well played game, very good defense, very, very good goaltending. Goaltending's been a great thing for the Rangers throughout the playoffs and throughout the year. They have a great goaltender. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in that series. I know New Yorkers are waiting, to get a chance to get back to the Stanley Cup and win it, and especially with the Knicks out and the Yankees kind of struggling, and the Mets just being, the Mets an average team. It's definitely a great time for the Rangers to shine, right?
It certainly is, and like you said, basketball's over here in New York. The baseball season's a very, very long season. Both teams, while the Mets are playing a little bit better than expected, they're playing okay. The Yankees are just playing okay, and it's very early still in the season. So hockey is in the spotlight, it's in the limelight. I find it interesting here on Sports Talk Radio in New York. Very rarely do they ever talk about hockey, and now that's really all they're talking about, and I find it quite interesting that there is so much talk about hockey, because during the year there's really not. There's so many other things. There's so many other sports that New Yorkers seem to follow. Right now they're in a nice lull. It's a nice lull for hockey because the games are so exciting. Rangers, every game against Washington was a one-goal game. Great excitement. I find it to be a fantastic sport. It's even better live. If you can watch it on TV, you would love it even more live because you can really watch how plays develop that I don't necessarily think you get when you see it on TV.
Now,
but watching it live is a fantastic sport, and I think hockey, hopefully, it will turn into something great. I think they're banking on the NHL. Would love to have obviously the Rangers in the finals, and then have the team from Los Angeles in the finals. So you would get both coasts involved. I think the NHL would be very happy with that.
We had our ISR correspondent at Game 5 of the last series. Speaking of seeing hockey in person, the goal with about 5 seconds left to set up the Ranger win in overtime. Were you at that game by chance?
I was not, but I have been. I've been in the Garden for many important games. Certainly in '94, when they actually clinched the cup. That building could get. It is so loud and deafening when the roars go on, and I could just imagine the roar at 6 seconds or 5 seconds left in the game when they tied it up. Was just that is a great experience for somebody to experience there live. It's just, I find the Garden to be a great place.
Right, and
when it's rocking like that.
Right, and it's funny. Speaking of games like that, this weekend was one of the most amazing weekends in sports. I don't know if you're a soccer fan, Mark, but the Manchester City-Manchester United game was probably one of the best sports games I've ever seen in my life. Man City scored 2 goals in the last 3 minutes to win the Premier League for the first time since 1968, I believe, or 68. So that was huge. And then the EuroLeague finals, which is the biggest basketball tournament in the world besides the NBA finals, the Olympiacos from Greece came back from 18 points. They were down by 18 points at the end of the third quarter, and they won the game. So, and in Europe, that's a way bigger deal than in the NBA. Even in the NBA, that'd be a huge deal, obviously. But in Europe, the scores are in the 60s and 70s. So if you do that, that's like phenomenal. So,
I remember reading. I thought that Manchester City versus United game.
Oh, not
drew something like 600. No, this was a couple of weeks ago. That drew about 650 million viewers.
Right.
Across the globe, which sounds like a lot. And then you put it in this perspective for the people in the U.S. That is 4 times as many that watch the Super Bowl.
Right, exactly.
And when you equate it to that, it kind of wows you to say, "Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable." That has that many viewers watching that particular game.
Right, and I made a mistake. I was apologizing. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't mean the Manchester United-Manchester City game. I meant the final game, which was on Sunday. The final, Manchester United.
Where City scored the last two goals. I forgot who they had played.
QPR. They were playing QPR.
That's right.
And it was a very interesting game because what was interesting about the game is by the time that it was about the 90th minute, QPR found out that even if they lost the game, they were not going to be relegated to the second division of English football. So this is just my, crazy, crazy superstition, is that they didn't care about losing the game because they finally wanted to see United not win, and so they just kind of let them win. Of course, that's just my opinion, but after the game, which was even more interesting, after the game, a lot of the QPR players that are friends with the Man City guys, they jumped on them and congratulated them as if they were part of the team. Wow. Yeah, it was very interesting because, Man U, wins every year, or Chelsea, or the teams that always win, and Man City, and it was such a great weekend. It was also, the greatest part about it too is if you're a Man City fan, is Man U started to celebrate in their game. I was watching both games at once. Man U was playing Sunderland, and Man U started to celebrate because they saw that the score was tied in Manchester with 1 minute left, so they figured, okay, we won the championship, and they started taking off their shirt and celebrating, and suddenly you see the reaction on guys like Ryan Giggs and Sir Alex when they look at the scoreboard and they see, oh no, Manchester scored, season's over, the championship goes to Man City. It was an amazing thing. So I know we kind of went off topic there, but just speaking of amazing games, it was really, really an amazing weekend in sports in Israel for soccer fans and in Israel for basketball fans. But the next thing, speaking of basketball, Mark, we want to talk about the Knicks. We had a really great segment yesterday for about 10 minutes with Bob from WFAN where we talked to him about, we really broke down, what the Knicks need to do. So we want to do that with you. So we're going to start off with this. Mike Woodson, a lot of rumors that he is returning, a lot of rumors that he might not be returning, even crazy rumors that Phil Jackson might want to come back. You never know. First of all, what are your thoughts on Mike Woodson returning and kind of, letting go of that interim tag and giving him the head coaching job?
I think he's going to get the job. I think he's going to get the head coaching job. I think they would be crazy, though, not to at least give Phil Jackson a call to see if he would be interested. I think the thought is that they may have to do that secretly, because if they publicly say that he didn't want the job, then it would tell a lot of people the reason he didn't want it is because he must think that the Knicks are not that good and will not win a championship over the next couple of years. So that's why he didn't take the position. So I think they have to be very quiet in how they approach him. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to take it. Even if they offered it to him, I don't think he'll take it. I think it'll be Woodson. Woodson proved over the last, let's say, 40 games or so, that he was able to get the team to play at a level that was better. So I think he will end up with the job next year.
Mark, it's interesting, speaking about the Knicks and possibilities, the Phil Jackson thing is out there. Another thing we talked about yesterday was potentially Steve Nash going to the Knicks. There are some rumors he's going to Miami, but I actually said about a year and a half ago I thought he'd be traded to the Knicks to join Amari. This was under Mark D'Antonio, of course, but he's not there anymore, obviously. I still think there's a chance of Nash going to the Knicks. What do you think are the chances of Steve Nash ending up in a New York Knicks uniform?
I don't think he will end up here. I think while they will be in need of a point guard, and it'll be interesting whether or not they can sign Jeremy Lin to next year's squad. And I think if they had the opportunity to sign Lin and then bring in another veteran, probably not Steve Nash. I think Steve Nash honestly is going to go to Miami.
Right.
I think if Steve Nash has the choice, he will want to go to Miami. And just, I think without D'Antoni here anymore, that was the thought. Amari needed a point guard, and Amari, you have to get him back in the game. But in reality, I think it's Carmelo's team, so it's not going to be built around Amari anymore. And while it's important you get him involved, it's not going to be just the Steve Nash Amari show like it was in Phoenix. So I just don't think he is. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's a good fit for what the Knicks have right at the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Mark. In fact, Coach Woodson made some sort of hint at the end of the season in those exit interviews the day after the season's over that Lynn will almost, I think he said, quote, Lynn will probably 100 chances, 99.9% Lynn will be back, or he said something along those lines. So they're definitely going to try and re-sign Lynn. And I also agree with you. Coming to New York, you don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know if Steve Nash wants to come and play really, really hard for a team that's highest expectations to be a 5 or a 4 seed, where you can go to Miami and they want a championship. That's it. I mean, nothing besides a championship is acceptable for Miami, especially if the big three stay together next year. We'll see what happens. Of course, if the Pacers win this series, a lot of things could happen there. We'll see. I mean, Bosch could be traded. We'll see. But the next thing I want to ask you about, and this is also something that we really kind of examined yesterday, is Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire. Do you think that this can work? I mean, is it time to give up on the experiment? Should they give it another year? Do they need to add a missing piece to coordinate between them? I mean, personally, I don't think it's going to work, and I think it's time for the Knicks to let go of Carmelo. But a lot of people disagree, so I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
I think it can work at times. There was a lot of discussion when Amari was coming back after being injured that maybe Amari would be best suited for the second team and play with the likes of Novak and J.R. Smith and some of those folks.
Yeah, Jerry Jeffries.
Working into it. So you're not on the court. You know, obviously, if you both start, maybe you're on the court the first 5 or 6 minutes together, maybe 7 minutes together, and then they start making in substitutions at that point in time. But I think there's a way that you can limit the amount of time that they spend on the court together. From that perspective, the thing that would concern, or the thing I would like to see is now let Amari get healthy again and see if he becomes the old Amari. Because if he's not, and he's more like the Amari that played the last couple games of the season, well, he's not one of the elite superstars anymore. You can't build your team around him anymore. He's not the focal point anymore. He just becomes a piece to the puzzle and not the main piece.
Right.
I'm not a big Carmelo fan either. I like it when the ball moves around and you have 5 guys on the court that don't really care who scores. It just goes to the open spot and the ball keeps moving and has energy in it. I think when Carmelo's on the court, it tends to stop moving a lot in his hands. But you know, they made the trade for him. They've got him signed for 3 more years. I think they'll run out the experiment along the 3 years and see what happens. And if it doesn't take, well, they tried, and they'll go to Plan B at that point in time.
Yeah, and it's funny. We just had on someone from ESPN Denver, a radio affiliate there, and they said they're happy. They're ecstatic with the trade. It's working out very well for them. Yeah, they lost in the first round this year, but the future is bright in Denver. They have a lot of really young players. I mean, their whole team's young. The only guy maybe on their team who's a good player, Andre Miller, will probably retire in the next couple of years. But still, I mean, this Denver team, Ty Lawson, JaVale McGee. I mean, there's Gallinari, who came from the Knicks. So Denver fans are very happy with the trade. They had Carmelo for 6-7 years, and nothing really happened with him. They made one, I think, Western Conference Finals appearance or something like that. And now they believe that this is they have the right team now to win under George Karl. And as you said, you're right. When Carmelo's in the game, it's not team anymore. He's a great player, but it's very hard to see him pass the ball and move it around. He's a great player. He can take over games, but he's not necessarily the best team player. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. And yeah, what you mentioned about Amari, that he's not the focal point, but it's kind of sad because he's getting paid $20 million a year.
Very sad. Very sad. They're gonna at some point regret that contract, if not already. 3 more years left, 60-something million left on the contract. That's tough for a second teamer to deal with on your team, but that's the way it is. And you know what? They wouldn't have gotten anybody else. I give him a lot of credit because he was the first one to come here. He's the one that brought everybody else here that did want to come play here.
Right.
He's the one that Carmelo, he's part of the reason Carmelo wanted to come here. Carmelo wouldn't have come here without him here.
That's true. Yeah, it's a good point. He's I guess you could say he started the new Knick culture of being the 8th seed, 7th seed in the playoffs. I mean, I know it's a weird thing to say, but at least they're making the playoffs. They went through a lot of years where they, were winning 20, 30 games. So at least they're winning, at least they're making the playoffs. So here's Ari to talk some Yankees, Mets, and all that great stuff.
Sure. I think there's a little bit of buzz about the Mets, and I think the buzz is, hey, you know what? They're not as bad as everybody expected them to be. I think everybody set very, very low expectations. I think there was a concern for Met fans that if the Mets started off horribly, that at some point down the road that David Wright would be traded. As the trade deadline nears in late summer here in the U.S. And now that they're playing okay, that they have some talent that is playing very hard, that you have a roster that nobody really knows anything about, but they're playing really, really hard. David Wright is leading them. He's batting .400. And now there's talks, I just heard yesterday, that the Mets are talking long-term extension with David Wright. So I think David Wright will be here forever. I think the Mets fans believe that they can build a team around him, that he is the guy to build around, and it clearly wasn't Jose Reyes. And I think Mets fans are pleasantly surprised, and I think they're quite happy the way their team is right now. There's nobody in their division that is running away with it. The Phillies are struggling. The Braves are struggling. The Mets find themselves chasing the Washington Nationals, which I think they feel more comfortable in chasing them than if they were chasing the Braves or the Phillies. So I think the Mets fan is quite happy 40 games into the season. All right, gentlemen, take care. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
It's Lubas Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, and it was fun to talk to Mark Silverman about some New York sports. It's been a great show so far. We're going to now dial up our next guest. He is from NBA TV, and his name is Jared Greenberg. We're dialing up right now as we speak. And once again, this is Louis Live on TuneIn Radio as well as IsraelSportsRadio.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Oh,
Hi, Jared. This is Ari Louis with Israel Sports Radio. You're live on Louis Live. How you doing out there?
great. How are you?
Doing great. There's so much great NBA playoffs to talk about. Let's get to Game 2. Pacers victorious. The Heat don't have Chris Bosh, obviously, for a while. And is there some concern in Miami that they actually, at the end of the day, might need Bosh? Bosh was looked at as kind of the third wheel. Shaq said the team is the big two. But it looks like Chris Bosh's value could be servicing, perhaps not. Are we looking into this a little too much, us media folks?
No, I mean, I think that Chris Bosh is a huge part of this team, and you know, teams at this time of the year are never better when somebody is injured, and Bosh does so much for this team. You know, he's such a different type of power forward that I think he would give David West and Roy Hibbert or whoever they would put on him some trouble. And, you know, this is a team that's played with Bosh the majority of the year, and they were pretty successful with him during the regular season, don't you think? So, absolutely, they're not better with him being out.
Hi, Jared. It's Rafael. Thank you for joining us on today's program. We want to kind of look more at this series. Some interesting stats from so far, 2 games. The Heat are shooting, I believe, 1 for 21 from 3. Last night, 3 Pacers players were in double-digit rebounds. David West, Roy Hibbert, and I believe George Hill all had 10-plus rebounds. The Pacers, in my opinion, have not even played a complete game yet. In last night's game, they missed something like 19 of their first 26 shots. So, I mean, the Pacers, I think, I'm from Indiana. I lived in Indiana. I picked the Pacers to win the series. I know how badly people in Indiana want Indiana basketball to be successful. Indiana Hoosier basketball is back this year. I think Indiana Pacer basketball is back. I think the future is bright. And I really think the Pacers right now, the sky's the limit. They should be very excited. They go home, win 2 at home, and then they're up 3-1, and then they just have to win 1 out of 3. So do you think it's become a realistic thing to say that the Pacers could win this series?
You're the one that picked the Pacers.
I picked the Pacers, yeah.
I knew there was somebody out there. It's funny that you mentioned Pacers basketball is back, and obviously with everything going on at the University of Indiana, they really have to turn things around. But, what's amazing about how good the Pacers have been, and I think when you look at consistency in terms of peaks and valleys within a season, it would be tough to find. I mean, maybe the Spurs, but it'd be tough to find a team that didn't dip that much this year, as much as the Pacers and obviously the Spurs. But the Pacers have been a model of consistency all year long. But what's interesting about that, and you mentioned about the support and them being back in Indiana, they had the second worst attendance in basketball this year, only behind the New Jersey Nets, which is not saying much. Obviously, during the playoffs, the attendance has picked up quite a bit. But, really, I think the state of Indiana hasn't supported them until they get on a roll and prove that they can win in the postseason.
Right. Actually, sorry, go ahead.
I think the key to their success against Orlando, and we saw it last night too, was the Pacers play out of the locker room in the third quarter. I mean, they just dominated Miami in that third quarter, and they did it several times against Orlando too. Coach Vogel is really proving to be, I think, one of the best tacticianers in all of the NBA. And we know right now, based on his pre-series comments, the Heat are not too fond of Coach Vogel. But
right.
What he has done in the locker room, getting some adjustments, and the team executing that third period has been remarkable.
Absolutely, and that's a great point about the attendance. But I can tell you, since I know a lot of people in Bloomington and Indianapolis, that people are very wary of this Indiana Pacers team. I was in Indiana when Ron Artest, what we like to call a doomsday for Pacer fans out there. He ruined the franchise and never was able to bounce back. We had so many thugs in our team that would get arrested, it seemed like, every other week for stuff. Those were the O'Brien days, and things were bad for a while. So I think Indiana people are just kind of waiting to see if this team is really for real. And I think they'll be sold out for sure. Game 3 in Indianapolis tomorrow. I think people are very excited. Darren Collison didn't have a good game. Again, Granger did not have a good game. I mean, this team is not even close to playing a perfect game against the Heat, and they've still been in both games and then won one of the games. So I really believe that the Pacers and LeBron, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. LeBron missing those 2 free throws in the last 3 minutes of the game. I was on Twitter at the time, and Twitter went nuts with Wilbon and all these media people saying stuff like, and of course, Skip Bayless from ESPN is probably going to have a field day with it today, or maybe he already has. I'm not sure. But what were your thoughts on him missing 2 free throws in a row? That MVP, 3-time MVP, missing 2 key free throws in the end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think we saw him do it in the Knicks series too. It's really mind-boggling. To me, what concerned me more than the 2 free throws, because that's something that just happens, and I don't think we can destroy LeBron and take away his MVP for that. But what bothers me more is that the ball is not in his hands, and he doesn't dictate what happens in the final seconds of a game when they're down. I mean, to me, I've publicly criticized LeBron time and time again for not being able to hit that shot, but at the same time, while talking out of both ends of my mouth, I still want the ball in his hands. There's no doubt about that. He is the best basketball player on the planet. He's the most physically dominating player. He's worked on his mid-range and outside shot so much over the last few years. And then in terms of getting to the bucket, there is no one better, and there's no human being on the face of the earth that can guard him. So, yeah, the free throws, that's not good, but listen, we've seen that happen in the past, and I'm sure he'll hit clutch free throws down the road at some other point. This wasn't a Game 7, which cost him a series. But to me, the bigger issue is he's got to be the one dictating the flow of the offense, not passing the ball off. He tried to set up Wade. on one of the final plays, and then Mario Chalmers gets the final shot, and I'm reading today that everybody in the Heat are saying that the play was drawn up for Mario Chalmers, and to me that's just, you don't pay Dwayne Wade and LeBron James to have Mario Chalmers take the final shot.
Absolutely. I was just about to mention that for our listeners here in Israel who didn't get to watch the game. I watched it, and I was just thinking to myself, why is Mario Chalmers shooting this? I mean, he's an average guard in the NBA, maybe a little bit above average. And as you just mentioned, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, LeBron, 3-time MVP. Forget even Dwayne Wade for a second. Just LeBron should have been the guy. Though it's been known across, for the last 9-10 years of LeBron's career, he's not a good 3-point shooter, and they needed a 3. So I think that's something that
they didn't need. I think it's not a slight on Chalmers as much as it is, because you're right. He's had a very good season. But it's more about putting the ball in LeBron's hands, letting him dictate, and letting him, decide where the offense is going.
Right, and that's what you would expect from your MVP. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he bounces back in Game 3. Every superstar usually does something crazy, like Kobe Bryant in that Game 6 when he called out all his teammates. His team really bounced back. Pau Gasol had something like, 18 rebounds or 20 rebounds. A monster game. Andrew Bynum played well in that game as well. So we'll see what happens to the Heat. I'm really, personally, I just think the Pacers are going to roll through the series, win both at home. And
roll through the series, not even struggle. They're going to roll through the series.
I think I was telling Ari in the green room before the show, I think that they're going to win at home by 15+. I've been saying.
Wow. Don't worry, we're getting the straight jackets right now and the loony bin all set up.
Listen, Jared, I've been saying this since January. People have been calling me nuts. This team is legit. Frank Vogel's a really smart coach. He's been in the NBA for 15 years. A lot of people don't realize that he's young, but he's been around. He's kind of like Spoelstra from the Heat. He's just had a lot of different jobs. Very deep team, and we'll see. I guess we'll see. But let's move on to another series that I also think is going to be a blowout. The Spurs and the Clippers. The Spurs have won 15 in a row. They're rolling right now. I think we can both agree on that, Jared. What are your thoughts on that series and going forward?
I was the one last night. We're all sitting around, and we had the guys at NBA TV and obviously the TNT guys, and I was the one, and obviously I was wrong. I was the one that thought the Clippers would win last night.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if you guys have seen the stat. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but the teams with 7 days off playing a team with only a couple days off, they're like 8-0 in NBA playoff history now with the Spurs win. And I just thought, while the Spurs are older and Greg Popovich has done such a great job this year of getting them rest and making his team so deep, it's extraordinary. Usually in playoffs, you shorten your bench. Greg Popovich seems to extend it, and that always works to their advantage. I just thought there might be some rust, and the Clippers were coming off so much momentum of going on the road, winning in a hostile environment in Memphis, while San Antonio is probably the second or third toughest place to win in the NBA. Memphis is right up there. So I thought that the Clippers would build off of that. But when Chris Paul and Blake Griffin get held to, I think, 21 combined points, it's just not going to work. And the Spurs just shot the lights out of the ball. You talk about the depth of Indiana, and I think you're exactly right that Frank Vogel's got a great squad there, well-rounded. I don't think there's any team that is as deep and as talented in so many different spots as San Antonio. When Kawhi Leonard can do what he does, Danny Green stepping up and really shooting efficient from three-point territory.
Right.
I mean, San Antonio shot 50% from three last night. I mean, that just doesn't happen, especially in playoff basketball. And the Clippers just didn't seem to have an answer for anybody. And Tim Duncan looked like vintage Tim Duncan going for 26 and 10 last night. It was just remarkable how dominant the Spurs were from start to finish. Obviously, the Clippers hung around for the first half, but in that second half, it was all San Antonio.
Right, and Timmy D looked great last night. It was so. I obviously didn't get to watch that game in Israel because it started at 5:30, 4:30 local time here, and I only could stay up for the first game.
You got to be more dedicated and wake up early.
Hey, I watched. I'll tell you this: I watched the Game 7 Lakers game. I went to bed at 8 in the morning, so I'm loyal. You can ask Ari. I'm always on the show. I'm always tired.
I think his being tired is contributing to him picking the Pacers. See, it's all together.
See, even after the Pacers playing so well in the first two games, I'm still getting ripped by our colleagues here at Israel Sports Radio. But we'll see. And
I'm with your callers.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. But as you mentioned, Danny Green, the third-year player out of North Carolina, really didn't do much his first 2 years in the NBA. DeJuan Blair is actually, for some weird reason, people like him in Israel. I can't tell you why. Maybe it's because of his name. In Hebrew, it's DeJuan, so I think people like to say his name. But he's one of the most popular players on the media here, so it's kind of weird. They have Patty Mills from St. Mary's. The list goes on. Like you said, he extends his bench. They have Boris Diaw as their number 12 guy. I mean, Boris Diaw was an all-star 4 years ago. So this team is incredibly impressive. And I think an interesting kind of a side note is when Eric Bledsoe, former Kentucky guard who didn't even really play in Kentucky, leads your team in every statistic. That's not good. That you're not going to win.
He was good. He was clutch for them.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, again, just like we were talking about with the Heat, when you have Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, and if another option is dominating for you, that just means that the opponent has done a really good job of taking your stars out of the game.
I mean, absolutely. That's another good point. And I think it's going to be very interesting as well with this series to see, what the Clippers do. As you mentioned, a really good point by you that they won Game 7 in Memphis. I feel like nobody picked them to win that game. Everyone was saying, Memphis beat the beat the Spurs last year. They're ready. They should have won the first game. We actually got the opportunity to interview Chris Wallace from the Memphis Grizzlies, and that was a great interview. But they were very excited about their chances, even when they were down. They thought they could win every game, and once they went back home, I think that was a statement win by the Clippers organization. Forget the players. Just as a team that struggled so much, that was a huge win on the road. And I would have also picked maybe them to win the Game 1 as kind of a riding high off that momentum. But at the same time, Chris Paul, sorry, it's completely blanked on his name. Chris Paul is injured, and so is Blake Griffin. And if these guys are injured, Blake Griffin said he was about 80%, and that's not good for a guy who uses a lot of his athleticism and his knees to jump high and to jump over people. He's not the type of player that you would want to be 80%. With other guys, with jump shooters, it's okay because, all they do, they're jump shots. But with a guy who's athletic, it could really hurt your team. So if you could tell our listeners, Jared, what do the Clippers need to do in Game 2 to make sure that this at least goes 5 games, let's say?
Well, I'm no X's and O's expert. I work with a whole lot of them. And last night, watching the game, I think the biggest point that the guys at our NBA TV studios were talking about was just how stagnant the Clippers were on offense. It was basically whoever had the ball on an isolation play and 4 other guys standing around. I understand the Clippers are banged up, but quite frankly, and not to be cold-hearted about it, everybody is banged up by this point. This shortened lockout season has been brutal on everybody. Even us, the broadcasters, are a little tired by this point.
Right.
But they just got to get into some offensive flow. The Spurs have traditionally been known as such a great defensive team. This year they erupted, and they were one of either the first or second best offense in the NBA during the regular season. So you have to be able to slow them down and be able to get not always the long rebound and let the Spurs leak out, but you have to be able to run some offense and take some time off the clock and set up plays for Blake Griffin and I think quite frankly a key which is not really talked about much is DeAndre Jordan. He'll go some games where he'll have 4 or 5 points and 6 or 7 rebounds. They just can't get that type of play from him with the amount of guys that the Spurs are rotating in their front line. You guys know about Thiago Splitter.
Right.
How great he has been coming over from Europe and what he did this year has just been remarkable. But but the Clippers just have to get other guys involved in addition to Blake and Chris Paul. And listen, there may not be a better one-on-one player in the NBA in terms of, we talked about what LeBron does, but Chris Paul is so good on penetration, but the bottom line is right now the way they're playing, it's so predictable and easy to defend if you're a brilliant mind like Greg Popovich.
Yeah, and Jared, that's really interesting you made the DeAndre Jordan point, because I was just about to say that. That's something I think the media and maybe TV guys, and you would know because you work with them, haven't really hit on. This guy got a monster contract before the season. Golden State tried to take him away, but the Clippers signed him, or they signed him to a contract to the sheet, and he has really struggled. I mean, this is a guy that I think is getting paid in the $8 to $10 million a year, maybe more, and he doesn't put up big numbers at all. And when he came out of college, one of his things was that he was not an offensive guy. He was a defensive guy. But he's been in the NBA now a couple of years, maybe a few seasons now, and it seems like he didn't really do much this year to develop his game. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back. We're running out of time. We have about 7 minutes left, so I want to talk to you about the 76ers series, and then Ari's going to close up with you about the Lakers blowout and what's going to go next, or what's going to happen next. So let's talk about the 76ers series. Very interesting series, kind of like the Pacers Heat series. Been very, very close. You gotta love the Drew Holiday, Evan Turner, these young guys who are really showing a lot of passion and energy. Doug Collins is an amazing coach. I think everyone knows that, but now everyone's kind of remembering it because he was in broadcasting for so long. Rondo's been struggling shooting the first two games. When he shot pretty well against the Hawks. So first of all, let's get your prediction. Let's put you on the spot. We haven't done that yet, and we're very big at doing that at Israel Sports Radio. Please tell us who you think is going to win the series and in how many games.
I initially probably would have said Boston in 5, but with the way the Sixers are playing, I'll probably push that to a 6th game. Especially the Sixers have been, I hate to say this, but to me, the first part of the Sixers season, they were it was all about circumstance for them. If you break it down, and I did it at one point during the season, the amount of quality teams that they played this year and they beat, it was more like 80% of them were at home. They really got a very fortunate schedule throughout the first third of the season where they didn't have to go on the road and play a grueling and grinding schedule like everybody else did. They got really fortunate with all those really good teams coming home. So they're tough to beat in Philadelphia, where the series now shifts to, so that's a big thing for them. But I just think, right now I think Boston we're dealing with, again, much like the Clippers. Paul Pierce is banged up. Ray Allen's banged up. Rondo's so good, but I don't think there's any way that the Celtics lose this series. I just think that they're a little vulnerable right now, and the opportunity for the series to be a longer series and go to 6 or 7 games is a real possibility. But I think Boston in the end is just way more talented and, more importantly at this time of the year, way more experienced. So I would say the Sixers don't really have as great of a chance as many people would think after a one-game performance. I think I'm sorry to break your heart here on this one, but it's much like the Pacers. One game does not make a series. That's why they're 7-game series and they're so difficult to win. I think that the Celtics win this one in 6.
Right. Well, I hope they do, so they're rested up for my Pacers, of course, because my Pacers are going to be ready to play them. I mean, I think the Pacers match up great against this team. If the Celtics do advance, I mean, I'm already putting down on paper that the Pacers are advancing. That's a fact in my life and in my book. But really, if you look at the matchups, a guy like Roy Hibbert, that'd be very interesting to see Roy Hibbert on KG. Danny Granger's a big body, maybe on Ray Allen or Paul Pierce. There's something that I think is also very interesting. Darren Collison is a point guard that's very underrated, along with George Hill. They're guys that most people don't know about because, they're not all-stars. But Darren Collison, if you watch him play, he is fast, and he can drive to the rim like every other player in the NBA. He just likes to dish the ball more than shoot it. So that's just me and my Pacer talk.
Are you the president of the Pacers fan club? Have you officially been...
I'm a very, very loyal Pacer person and Indiana basketball person. My father was a professor at Indiana during the 60s and 70s with Bobby Knight. So that's, that's the stories I grew up on. I grew up on Scott May on the 1975 championship team. And
you're not biased at all.
I mean, listen though, I was a loyal fan during the Pacers years of struggle when like I mentioned, when everyone was getting arrested, Marquise Daniels was caught with drugs, and it was a horrible time for Pacer fans. But we're back, and this also I think
you're back, and a little bit of success hasn't gotten to your head at all.
We're the 3 seed. We are not the A seed. I mean, we are the 3 seed, and as you mentioned, Jared, you said this, so I'm going to take this from you. We were probably the most consistent team in the NBA this year, besides the Spurs, winning wise and going through stretches, because the Bulls had some rough patches, the Heat had some rough patches.
But keep in mind, all those other teams, the Bulls, the Heat, the Celtics,
injuries,
the Spurs,
right.
Oklahoma City, the Lakers, they all have something that your team, your dream world that you're living in doesn't have, and that's the experience and being there and doing that. Now you have a guy like David West, who's a great veteran and probably one of the best off-season additions that anyone picked up this year. But to me, it is so rare to find a team that doesn't have that postseason experience and all of a sudden comes out of nowhere. Because you got to admit, the County came out of nowhere, and just to say that they're going to explode onto the scene this year and beat the most talented team in basketball, arguably, depending on how you want to look at it, I think it's very difficult. And I love the Pacers roster. I just think they're a year away, and I think that they maybe are going to have to change the model and the makeup of this team a little bit, because their balance is sometimes a detriment to them. And I think that we're going to see that eventually in a big game down the stretch here.
Time will tell. Time will tell. That's the famous expression.
All right, Jared, last question before we let you go. There's an interesting story regarding Kobe Bryant where he's quoted as saying he doesn't take charges, and he kind of goes on and explains that Bird took charges and he has a bad back. Magic and Michael didn't, and they're healthy. And then he talked about how other players on his team don't take charges, and the only guy who did take charges was Derek Fisher, who's not on the team anymore. I just think this has got to be a mind game, right? I mean, a Phil Jackson mind game that just transferred into Kobe Bryant. I mean, what's he doing with this?
I don't know. This is the first time I've heard of this, but I think over the next 5-10 years, when we talk about this generation of basketball, we're obviously going to be comparing Kobe to LeBron. I think that everybody would agree with that, and I think where LeBron is going to run away with this argument in most people's minds is how complete of a basketball player. I don't think anybody in their right mind, except for maybe a Pacers fan, would have had a problem with LeBron James being named the Defensive Player of the Year.
Right. I'll agree.
And the fact of the matter is that LeBron could literally guard the point guard all the way through the center, depending on the team, any night. And I think that's been the one difference with Kobe. I think, Kobe's big argument over LeBron is how clutch of a player and how great of a shooter Kobe's been. And Kobe will remain, a great closer because he's got that great perimeter game, which LeBron is still developing. And I think there's no doubt in most people's minds that eventually LeBron will get that as well. But, the Lakers have their philosophy. They've won a bunch of rings. And I think now with the change of coach, the question is that same philosophy that they've had during the Phil Jackson run, is that still there? And I think it is there with a couple of the guys on the roster. It may not flow all the way to the end of the bench, and it may not go to the guy who's running the team because he has a different way of thinking. But, that's the way Kobe is. And Kobe's, to me, Kobe is the Derek Jeter of the West Coast, if you can understand my analogy there, in terms of how professional he is on and off the court, how he deals with internal matters. I just think that Kobe's got his way of doing things, and until it's proven that it doesn't work anymore, well, I think we still say that he is one of the greatest players that we certainly have ever seen play, and, let him do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at the all-time scoring titles, he could crack in the top threes, in the top 5 right now. So, and I like that Derek Jeter analogy. They both have 5 rings, both clutch players, both very professional. with the media and with the fans for the most part. Jared, we certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we look forward to doing it in the future.
Anytime, fellas. Give me a call.
All right, thanks so much, Jared. Be well.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, that was Jared Greenberg of NBA TV. We're going to take a break, and Raphael, who was on the other side?
Bram Weinstein, who you might see on SportsCenter tonight on ESPN, will be joining us to talk about the Heat game. I was following him on Twitter. Ari, I think you're going to do a lot of this interview, but I was following him on Twitter, and he was talking about how LeBron should have taken the last shot instead of Mario Chalmers. So, Ari's going to do that interview for you guys, and it's going to be a great interview. So please come back and join us.
All right, that's on the other side. It's Louis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com. When the bases are loaded, smart investors don't step back. Find out what they're doing from international money expert Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, Mondays at 7 p.m.
We're standing outside El Gaucho restaurant here in downtown Jerusalem, and we see another happy, satisfied customer. Ma'am, what is your name?
Kashet?
And what did you think of El Gaucho restaurant?
Oh, incredible. I'm not much of a meat eater, but when I do eat meat, I go out to El Gaucho. My husband brought me here for an anniversary dinner, and I wasn't crazy about going to a meat place for an anniversary dinner, but the meat was so tender that I had to come back a second time, so here I am for the second time.
Well, you heard it right from the cow's mouth. El Gaucho in downtown Jerusalem.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, we're going to dial up our next guest. Been a great first hour so far. We're going to continue it into the second. And after Bram, we're going to have Clenari Carter. Hello. Hi, Bram. This is Ari Louis on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. How you doing out there?
How are you?
It's great to have you on, and this is going to be a lot of fun to speak to you. We certainly appreciate the time. We know you're very busy in preparation for Sports Center, but let's get right into it. You had an interesting tweet regarding LeBron James not taking the final shot, having Mario Chalmers take that shot instead. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of elaborate more than just in the tweeting world, because now you can do it here on radio, really express yourself.
You know, is this guy the MVP or not? So that really is the question here. I mean, they have two MVPs on that team. Why would neither one of them take a three-pointer with 8 seconds left in a playoff game? How would it happen that neither one of them would? I get it that LeBron James has changed his game and he doesn't take a lot of threes now, but I have a hard time believing that Kobe Bryant is letting Metta World Peace take that shot, or Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook are turning it over to Serge Ibaka at that moment. It's not the way the world works in the NBA. So for me, I just how does the MVP, I guess, justify a decision at the end of the game when they need to take a three-pointer that neither he or Dwayne Wade take the shot? I just don't quite understand. I don't care what he's shooting in the game. I mean, why wouldn't he be the one taking that shot at that moment? He's the all-world three-time MVP.
Right.
I don't know. It's just my opinion.
Bram, did you have a vote in the MVP, by the way? Was it? And if so,
no, I don't have a vote in that one.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'd be giving it to LeBron after that performance.
Right.
Listen, he's a great player. I think he gets too much criticism, but it's moments like that where you wonder, is this guy a champion? And there's a reason why maybe there's no ring on his finger right now, because I can't ever imagine Kobe Bryant saying, I'm not taking that shot, or that the third option on the team is the guy who's going to take that shot. I mean, there are plenty of times
when Michael Jordan won championships. There's famous moments where he passed the ball to Steve Kerr, and he passed the ball to Scottie Pippen. He didn't take the final shot, but more times than not, those people were wide open. There was like a design play, a last-second decision, and the ball was in his hands. I mean, did LeBron even touch the ball in the final 8 seconds? It's really amazing to me.
We just had Jared Grieber on from NBA TV, and he was talking about how LeBron is more of a complete player, but the knock on him, of course, the clutch area. I mean, he is, I think, 27. Can he develop some type of ice in his veins, or is it just too late? And I mean, how can he win a championship like this?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, they have the best team with the most talent. I don't think anyone argues that. Now, maybe it's a little different now that Bosh is hurt. But I'm sorry, but there are no MVP candidates for the Indiana Pacers. They're a very good young team. I think they should be very satisfied with where they are, and I think everyone knew going in the chances of them winning this series were very slim, and maybe that's been altered a little bit without Bosh on the court. But the best two players on the court are playing for Miami. But that gets mitigated if neither one of them want the ball at the end of the game, which I'm not blaming Wade for. I'm blaming LeBron for. I've seen Dwayne Wade over and over and over, and he proved it in the finals a few years back, that he wants the ball at the end of the game. Why doesn't LeBron want it? Why isn't he demanding it? There's no one that can cover him. There's nobody in the world that can cover him. So at the end of the game, if he's the one who is certain to be able to at least get his shot off and get as good a look as possible, why isn't he the one that wants the ball in his hands? Why isn't he angry after the game saying, I should have had the ball in my hands, and put it back on the coach to try to explain how Mario Chalmers throws up a last desperate shot? It's nothing against Chalmers. It's just he might not even be the third option on the court for them at that point. It's ridiculous, and will he grow into that role? I don't know, but until he does, it's hard for anyone to believe that he's going to grow up and be a champion.
I made a correlation when he left the Cleveland Cavs to Miami Heat. It was kind of the A-Rod of the NBA, because the fact that he left the team just like an A-Rod left the Mariners to the Rangers is not the best correlation, because A-Rod did it more for money. But the clutchness being an issue, A-Rod got his ring almost because someone else did it for him. Maybe that is just have to be Dwayne Wade will have to step in the fourth. I want to stick with the NBA, and you mentioned Kobe Bryant a few times. Interesting article where he came out and said that he doesn't take charges, and mentioned that Larry Bird had a bad back, but Magic and Michael didn't, and very healthy. And he pointed out how other players on his team don't take charges, and the one guy who did, Derek Fisher, is not on the team anymore. This has got to be a mind game, right? Some type of Phil Jackson mind game to just continue with Kobe Bryant?
That's interesting. I never even thought of that, but that's true. I mean, I guess you never see him taking those type of charges. That's true. They're another one. I mean, they're another team that to me doesn't really make much sense. I mean, who has a better front court than they do? Name the team that has a better front court than they do. How do they get blown out? I mean, how do they lose by 29 to anybody? I mean, I think Oklahoma City is the best team in the NBA. We'll see if they end up winning it all. I think they're the best team, and I think they would end up beating the Lakers by 30. And the Lakers 2 games earlier lost by 20-something to Denver. They are mentally not a very strong team. At least from the outset, it appears that way, that they can't handle the success or don't want to play together, or there's something wrong internally with them that manifested itself last year, which is probably why Phil Jackson left, and has manifested it again this year. But they're just so talented. They've got one of the best players in the world, and they've got these two frontline players that no one can match up with, that they can't help but win a lot of the games. Then they play a team with that kind of energy, and they're getting run off the court. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens tonight, but to me, they're another one. They're not too far-fetched from the Heat, where you go, I don't really understand how they're beatable, or particularly beatable in that way with the people that they have on the court.
I agree with you that Oklahoma City, well, I have them going to the NBA Finals. I have them losing to the Heat, but certainly if not the best team, 1A. One thing, though, I'd be concerned, or I want to know what happened is, Mike Brown was called out by Magic Johnson in the first round of the playoffs, and Magic said that if Mike lost, the Lakers lost Game 7, Mike would be fired. If Oklahoma is the best team, but the Lakers are used to winning titles or playing in the NBA Finals, and they lose to Oklahoma City, especially if it's a sweep, especially all these blowouts that are happening to them, can Mike Brown lose his job?
That's hard. I don't know. I mean, I was surprised to hear that when Magic said it. I mean, he does still work with the Lakers.
Right.
So that was very honest, even more honest than I think we're used to. So, is he going to get fired? I don't know. I think that's easy to get changed. And I found it funny, for a period of time when there was this kind of prevailing thought that, like, well, if the Lakers are going to get Dwight Howard, that they're going to have to trade Andrew Bynum. And there seemed to be some kind of apprehension attached to that statement. Why? I mean, what about Andrew Bynum suggests that he's a better player than Dwight Howard? Why wouldn't you immediately move him to try to get Dwight Howard on the team, unless you have some kind of injury concern with Dwight Howard? Dwight Howard's a more mature player. He's, I think, more reliable on the court. He's certainly performed better in the playoffs in the past. And I don't see that there's even a correlation between the two. I think not only is Dwight Howard the best center in the NBA, he's by far the best center in the NBA. And Andrew Bynum is only the second best center because there's no one else.
Right.
So, to me, I think there's a lot of changes coming to that team, because if this thing goes the way it's going, they're going to get run off the court the way they got run off the court last year in the playoffs. And that suggests that they're going to have to make internal changes. And that could be Mike Brown. I mean, if they go out and rip the roster apart and Pau Gasol is actually traded and Andrew Bynum maybe didn't move to get Dwight Howard, and I think they got to figure something out to try to help Kobe Bryant on the court get people who play with the same type of will. That may mean Mike Brown is out as well. Who knows?
It's interesting because the talk about Andrew Bynum being traded, he's been in trade talks for a long time, but a few years ago, there was talk about him for Jason Kidd, almost straight up. Lakers turn it down. That's when Kobe then said he wanted to be traded. People forget all that because that was 2 titles ago and an MVP ago regarding Kobe Bryant. But it is weird. Lakers don't want to seem to give up on this guy for whatever reason. All right, I want to go to the Spurs series now, because it seems they are one of the rare number 1 seeds that have gone under the radar. They were number 1 seed last year. I know they lost in the first round. But here they are again, haven't lost in a month, have the longest winning streak in the last 8 years since the 04 Spurs won more games in a row. Why do the Spurs, at least for me, are not getting as much credit as they deserve? Everyone's talking about the Heat and Oklahoma City, rightfully so, I suppose, but the Spurs really going under the radar. What do you think is the reason for it?
It's all because they're old. That's the only thing I can come up with, because Duncan is old, Ginobili is old, Parker is old. But they certainly aren't playing that way this year, and you're right. I mean, it's not only that they're winning a lot. Look at the scores of their games at the end of the regular season. They were blowing people out. They were winning by 20, 25 points. They went on a streak where they were winning by an average of over 20 points. I mean, look, this was a compacted season, and there's a lot of issues that go on there, but look at the Heat at the end of the season. They weren't playing like that. They were losing to the Wizards twice. So not all the contenders just kind of ramped it up right as the regular season was coming to an end. Oklahoma City certainly didn't do it, because they didn't challenge San Antonio by the end of the year to get the number 1 seed. They are, to me, Greg Popovich's coach of the year. I don't even think him or Thibodeau. I mean, yeah, but look at that roster. I mean, who really gave them a shot after they went out of the 1 seed in the first round a year ago to repeat and get back and be where they are? They are doing something that's a little different than the other contenders, and that is they decided to keep their team together. And they're not just throwing together a bunch of high-priced superstars and imagining that it's just going to work out. And it feels like they're playing a different game than everybody else. They know where each other's going to be on the court. They can, therefore, take advantage of other teams' weaknesses defensively. I mean, they play an almost old-school style of basketball that is, at times when you watch them, almost Harlem Globetrotter-esque compared to what their teams are doing against them. They just seem to know where everybody's going to be, and that goes with experience, and I'm actually rooting for them. At this point, it's hard to root for the Heat. It's not that I want to see LeBron lose. It's just hard to root for them because of the way they decided to put their team together and how non-traditional the way it is that they play. I mean, they just spread out and let their talent try to take over. What San Antonio does is basketball. I mean, that is coordinated efforts between good players, running a system, running plays. They're fun to watch. They're old school, and I like it. And boy, I tell you what, the other teams don't seem to have caught up to them, and we'll see. I mean, I'm assuming they get by the Clippers based, a lot on the injuries that the Clippers have. We'll see. As long as they get Oklahoma City, that'll be an interesting clash of styles. But I'm rooting for them. I mean, I really think it's an interesting way for potentially Duncan to go out, for potentially Popovich to go out, for potentially Ginobili to go out, and certainly, I mean, they just have no panache. They're not the Heat, they're not the Thunder, they're not the Lakers, so they don't get the headlines. But watch him play. It's fun.
You know, the NBA is very much a have and have not league. I've said the stat over and over since 1980. Only, I believe, 9 franchises have won an NBA title. The Mavericks were the 9th. It just basically you have a few teams that make it. And if you go since 1999, the Mavericks have been in the finals twice. Outside of that, from the Western Conference, it's either been the Spurs or the Lakers. So it could happen again. It could be the Spurs or it could be the Lakers. So I wouldn't rule the Spurs out. I still like OKC, but I definitely could be wrong and wouldn't be surprised by it. Last question, Brad, before we let you go. Let's go to Major League Baseball. We have potentially some record-breaking seasons, some history-making seasons. David Wright's batting over 400. Josh Hamilton is chasing the Triple Crown in the American League. I know it's only May, but what are your thoughts about potentially one of those guys hitting over 400 or, in Hamilton's case, since it is his walk year, he's looking for a big contract, getting the Triple Crown this year out of the American League?
I can't see David Wright doing it because I don't think his lineup is good enough around him. So if he remains on this kind of pace, I think pitchers are going to just start moving around him, and they're not going to give him a lot to hit. And then we'll see if the frustration sets in. Plus, he's a very good player, but this would be beyond a career year for him.
Right.
Josh Hamilton, on the other hand, I think there's a lot of legitimacy to the prospect that he could have that type of year. I don't think it's a fluke. I think we all recognize how talented he is, and if he can just keep his inner demons at bay, then he's a fantastic baseball player. It'd be really interesting to see what Texas does with him. You have to be able to trust the guy, and off the field and on the field, and he is in line for a massive contract. So they got to make a decision there about how many years are they going to trust that not only will he be able to play to the ability that he's playing at, but he'll be able to kind of keep it together personally as well. So they have an interesting decision to make, but. Because of the lineup he's in, you can't pitch around him. You have really no choice with him. So he's in a perfect position to continue to do this. He's obviously motivated because the contract is there. He's on a very good team, and he's probably on the best lineup in the middle of it. So you can try to pitch around him all you want. All you're going to be doing is setting up Nelson Cruz and Adrian Beltre and all the other hitters that Texas has, and they're going to score runs on you either way. So pitchers are going to have to take their shots at him, and if he remains locked in, I don't see how the Triple Crown is completely out of reach for him.
Yeah, there's such a possibility with that lineup, and I think a little easier in the American League because pitching is better National League. So there is a chance. Again, it hasn't been done. I think it hasn't been done since the 60s. Frank Robinson in the 60s, but there's a chance this year. But in any case, Brad, we certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Thank you so much, and we look forward to you coming on the show in the future when, of course, you have time.
All right, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Brad, be well. All right, that was Brad Weinstein from ESPN. You may have seen him on ESPN Sports Center. And we certainly appreciate his time here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. We're going to stay here, not take a break, and dial up our next guest. He is our Israel Sports Radio Southern correspondent, Clary Carter. Down up as we speak. Once again, thanks to Bram Weinstein from ESPN Sports Center.
Hello.
Hi, I'm speaking with Clary Carter.
Hey, bro. What's up, man? How y'all doing?
Doing great, Clary.
Clary, good to have you on. Of course, you're Israel Sports Radio's Southern correspondent. We have a short segment today, about a 15-minute segment. So we want to get straight to it. Kanar, we've been talking about this now, it seems like, for over a month, and you know where I'm going with this, but Pacers Heat last night. Pacers win. I know that you're a dark horse, but let's give some love to the Pacers. It seems like I was just tweeting with my friend a couple minutes ago. He was telling me that no one's giving the Pacers love for this win. Everyone's just blaming the Heat. Now that I think about it, it's true. No one is, everyone's just saying the Heat lost the game, But how about saying the Pacers won the game? So what are your thoughts on last night's epic game by the Pacers?
What you saw last night is what you're going to see throughout the entire series. It's going to be the Pacers. They have a great inside game, especially with, David West and Roy Hibbert. And then you look at the fact that, Chris Bosh is gone. Yesterday, David West and Hibbert combined for, 21 rebounds, 24 points. The night before that, I mean, what you seen last night is going to be exactly what you're going to get. I mean, they have an inside game, they have an outside game. George Hill was was the sixth man coming in off of the bench. Now he's starting. Now you got Collison and Leandro Barbosa coming off the bench. They're combining for 14 points last night, 19 points in game one. I mean, this is a team that is very deep. Not only that, but they have everything that the Miami Heat are missing. The Miami Heat, they don't have a good inside presence, especially with Chris Bosh being out. And this has nothing to do with whether Chris Bosh is going to be there or not. The Miami Heat's inside presence. I mean, when you're looking at Ronnie Turioff, when you're looking at Udonis Haslem, and you're looking at Anthony.
Right.
When those three come in, there's no offense there. So something has to be, like, you know what I'm saying? They're not getting a lot of production from that core. And now with Chris Bosh not being there, that is their down low post game. So they're not. So that's done. So now you have to look at the Pacers and say, well, the Pacers are deeper team, of course, Barbosa and Collison. Then on top of that, they have a better down low presence. So yes, what we've seen from Wade and Bron shooting 8 for 22 and 12 for 24, they're going to have to put those numbers up a lot. And not only are they going to have to put those numbers up in every game, but they're going to struggle to win. And it's going to be because of the Indiana Pacers being so deep and just being, that is a complete team.
Right, and that's a great point about the post game. Joel Anthony, my fellow Canadian out there, he's not a very good player. He is Canadian, so I have to give him some love, but he's really not that good of a player. Haslem seems to not, as you meant, not really been an offensive threat. Or that year where they won with Wade and Haslem was a key player on that team, but it seems like his offensive production has dropped since then. Of course, that was a while ago. That was, in 2005.
Yeah. So we're talking about Mourning and Shaq, too.
Right.
Down there.
Yeah, so great stat from last night's game. No player on the Heat after LeBron and Dwayne Wade had more than 5 points. That's bad. That's terrifying. I remember on last week, maybe it was you on last week's segment, I think it was someone else, but someone said, we were talking about the Heat and the Pacers, and they said, they have Shane Battier and they have Mike Miller. Well, these guys aren't scoring very well. They're not playing that well right now for the Heat. Same with Norris Cole, who started the year off really hot. People were saying rookie of the year. Then he dropped off the face of the earth after the first month, and then Kyrie Irving just took over. But yeah, I think the Heat have a lot to be worried about. LeBron missing those 2 free throws. I wanted to get your thoughts on Mario Chalmers taking the 3 instead of LeBron or even Dwayne Wade. Why was Mario Chalmers the one who took the last shot?
Actually, I didn't have a major problem with that. It looked like what happened was, wasn't it Wade had taken the drive to the hoop, and shots had been missed, and by the end of the transaction, it looked like Mario Chalmers had ended up with a good-looking three-pointer. The reason why I say good-looking is if you remember the NCAA tournament when
Memphis,
Kansas,
right, right,
when they won the national championship, it was Mario Chalmers.
It was.
And the funny part was it almost looked like the same exact look and the same exact type of shot. The only difference was defense and somebody being in his face. That was the only difference. And that ball hit the rim. Like, it was a very good shot, and I really don't have a problem with that. The only problem that I kind of had with that was the fact that it wasn't, Wade or James. But because of the way the play kind of came about, that's what they ended up with.
Right.
And that was a good shot.
Right, and of course, today in the media, they all said, because of course LeBron's getting a lot of stuff, a lot of hate from the media, and they've been telling the media that the play was drawn up for Chalmers. It wasn't as if LeBron was scared to shoot it. It was that, the play was drawn up for Chalmers. Coach Eric Poelstra, that's what he wanted. So, I don't know, maybe the coach could get criticism for that, or maybe LeBron could get criticism for being in the huddle and saying, no, I want the shot. Like, Mario, you're my boy, and I know you can make it, but I'm the one who should shoot it. I'm the MVP, and he didn't do that. So that's also something that could be, very bad. Moving on, though, we only have about 5 minutes left, Clary. I want to talk about the Marlins. We talked about them a couple weeks ago with you, and they were struggling, but they've kind of been playing better. So what do you think the key to the Marlins have been with the NL East maybe not being as strong as we thought it would be? this year. That's what it's looking like. The Mets are doing well. The Nationals have started to lose a little in a row. I think they lost 4 in a row. Maybe they started winning again, but the NL East is not going to be, I think, what we expected. I think the winner is going to win about 85, 90 games. It's not going to be something crazy because the Phillies are really struggling right now, and there's no word when Chase Utley's coming back and Ryan Howard, and they're not really sure about that. So why are the Marlins playing so well?
If you ask me, it goes right back to the fact of their defense. Their defense has stepped up. Their defense was very, very, very porous. And I use that word with most utmost respect. but their defense was just kind of, it was very, very at the bottom ranks of MLB. But now when you look at their pitching, and now their pitching and their defense is only allowing maybe like 2-3 runs a game. At first they were allowing 4 runs a game, so they kind of brightened that down a little bit. Not only that, but their offense. You have, Hanley Ramirez and Omar, and you have these guys. You can generate, as long as your pitching can hold teams to 2 to 3 runs. If your pitching can do that, you have the offense that could take off. You have the type of offense that could score at least 4 or 5 runs. So I think that they're coming around to that, and I think a lot of it has to do with that with their defense.
Right, and yeah, we're gonna see what's gonna happen. It's going to be a long season in baseball, and we hope that Josh Johnson starts to pitch better. He struggled at the start of the year, and he's a guy that they were really counting on. And of course, Heath Bell was demoted from the closer spot, and that was something they spent a lot of money on. So the Marlins' future is bright, I guess you could say, but the guys have to start playing better. Josh Johnson has to start pitching better. And I just want to correct myself. The Heat won in 2006 with Haslam. But still, that was 6 years ago. I know I'm kind of sidetracking now, but that was 6 years ago, and Haslam's been very injured since then. He's cut his cornrows. His hair looks different now. He looks like a different player. Getting older, you never know. But now I wanted to move on.
He can't guard West.
What was that?
I said he cannot guard David West.
No, he cannot. David West is a beast. This guy is a guy who people did not want to sign because he was coming off ACL surgery, and he's kind of old. Not really. I think he's 30. But people did not want to sign him. And, wow, they made a mistake. He had 16 points, 10 rebounds last night. Made a lot of important shots, not necessarily clutch, but just was at the right time was there. And it's really maybe something the Pacers missed from last year's team when they played the Bulls very, very close. And that was that was a great Bulls team, a no injured Rose, and they almost beat them. It went to 5 games, but they were winning every game. So maybe if they had him last year, that would have changed everything. So last year, his team was younger, and now they have a guy like him who's been to the playoffs with Chris Paul. So I love my Pacers. I'm going to be loyal. I'll be watching the game Thursday night. I think it's going to be a great game. I even told Ari Louis that I think the Pacers are going to win by 15 points. But we'll see.
Game 3?
Yeah, Game 3.
Okay.
It's possible.
Remember when you asked me, you said why did I pick them as my dark horse?
Right.
Even though they were like a number 3. Well, it was the fact that nobody believes in them.
Exactly.
And I think that, nobody looks at Pacers and put them on the same level, even as the Lakers. And right now, they're better than the Lakers. But nobody looks at them and says Miami, Chicago, Spurs, Oklahoma City, and
right. No,
Pacers. Nobody says that. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. It's true. Even last year and I guess this year, not as much. But even with the Spurs, people forget the Spurs are the number 1 seed this year, and we're acting as if it's a miracle that they're playing so well, but they are the number 1 seed. But with the Pacers, it's much different. Even our last guest, Jared Greenberg from NBA TV, was telling us that the Pacers had the second to worst attendance in the NBA. So people in Indiana.
That's basketball land.
Yeah, and that's basketball land. I know I lived there 8 years. That's real basketball land. And I can tell you for a fact the reason why that is because people are very scared to support this team because they've, it's Indiana Hoosiers basketball and Indiana Pacers basketball the last 5 years have been really ugly, really bad, not making the playoffs for 5 years it was, or 4 years in a row. For Indiana basketball, not making the NCAA tournament for 3-4 years. So I think once, next year, I think the Pacers could go from having the second to worst attendance to the best attendance in the league, because people love basketball there. So it's going to be very interesting. Clinari, I want to finish with this. We were talking, you and I, yesterday about finals and stuff. I picked the Thunder to beat the Spurs. You still have the Spurs. Tell our listeners why you're really riding high on the Spurs. I know they're your team, but why do you think the Spurs are going to beat a young Thunder?
Well, the reason why I think the Spurs are going to be able to beat the young Thunder is because everybody always looks at Oklahoma City and they see three things. And the three things that they look at is Kevin Durant, Brian Westbrook, and you got James Harden coming off the bench. Well, when you look at the Spurs, they have Tim Duncan, and they have Parker. That kind of equals up to, Durant, Westbrook, maybe minus, 5 points, something like that. Then you look at Ginobili coming off the bench. Ginobili does the same thing as James Harden. So now we take it and we have those three, and we could just, kind of move them out of the way. Now you're looking at Oklahoma City. Now you're looking at an Oklahoma City team minus their big three, and the Spurs minus their big three. And the Spurs have way more firepower. Not only that, but they're way deeper than the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's why I'm looking at that, because after you get done with those three, you end up with Ibaka, you end up with Perkins, you end up with, after you move those guys, and then you look at the Spurs, and they just keep coming and coming and coming and going. Danny Green, Kyrie Leonard, Steven Jackson. D.L. had 12 of them.
Okay, looks like we lost Clinari there.
Let's just call him back and say goodbye, just so it's...
Yes, we'll do that right now. Okay. Second here. So,
no.
Clinari is making a great point. Okay, we may have been knocked off the internet.
Should we take a commercial?
Yeah, we'll take a commercial and be back. It's Louis live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
SportsRadio.com. When the bases are loaded, smart investors don't step back. Find out what they're doing from international money expert Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, Mondays at 7 p.m.
We're standing outside El Gaucho restaurant here in downtown Jerusalem, and we see another happy, satisfied customer. Ma'am, what is your name?
Keshet.
And what did you think of El Gaucho restaurant?
Incredible. I'm not much of a meat eater, but when I do eat meat, I go out to El Gaucho. My husband brought me here for an anniversary dinner, and I wasn't crazy about going to a meat place for an anniversary dinner, but the meat was so tender that I had to come back a second time, so here I am for the second time.
Well, you heard it right from the cow's mouth. El Gaucho in downtown Jerusalem.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem. IsraelSportsRadio.com. Broadcasting live from Israel. IsraelSportsRadio.com. When the bases are loaded, smart investors don't step back. Find out what they're doing from international money expert Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, Mondays at 7 p.m.
We're standing outside El Gaucho restaurant here in downtown Jerusalem, and we see another happy, satisfied customer. Ma'am, what is your name?
Kashet?
And what did you think of El Gaucho restaurant?
Ah, incredible. I'm not much of a meat eater, but when I do eat meat, I go out to El Gaucho. My husband brought me here for an anniversary dinner, and I wasn't crazy about going to a meat place for an anniversary dinner, but the meat was so tender that I had to come back a second time, so here I am for the second time.
Well, you heard it right from the cow's mouth. El Gaucho in downtown Jerusalem.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
All right, we're back here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. We're going to call Clenari real quick just to be mentioned, say goodbye because we got our internet back up, Baruch Hashem, and then we'll go on to Jim Williams and wrap up the program. Again, great program so far here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey Clenari, we seem to have lost you. We had some technical difficulties here. We got to run, but we want to thank you for coming on as always, and we'll speak to you next week.
All right, thank you. Check me out at JMC Sportsbook as well. I appreciate it.
All right,
Clenari.
Clenari, be well.
Speak to you next week.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Ari.
Peace, guys. Peace, man. That guy, sorry, one guy. Later, Clenari. Clenari is so powerful, such a great guy that it's like saying guys.
Yeah.
So I think I said it there. Okay, we're going to now dial up our next guest. He's a 7-time Emmy Award winner, and he's regular here on the program on Louis Live. And that, of course, is Jim Williams from the Washington Examiner. So, and then we'll wrap up the program. But before we do, we will tell everyone about the lineup for tomorrow. It's going to be a great show as well on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
And next week.
Yes.
As well.
Hello?
Hi, Jim. This is Ari Louis. You're live on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How you doing out there?
I'm fine. Always an entertaining show. Enjoy it so far.
Yes, it's been a good one, and let's get right into it. Apparently, it's been announced that Derrick Rose is going to be out for at least 8 to 10 months.
12 months.
Excuse me, yeah, somewhere between 8 to 10 to 12 months with the ACL. Doctor says, though, he'll be back to a high level. What are your thoughts? I mean, he won an MVP last season. It's very hard to recover. Tom Brady has been able to recover and play at a high level. Not everyone has. What do you think will happen with Derrick Rose?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, again, excuse me. Just a second. I think I swallowed a bug. No, just kidding. Hang on. My apologies, guys. I got
no problem.
a little bit of a frog in my throat. Anyway, what I think will happen with Derrick Rose, as it's always the case with these types of injuries, is it depends on two things. One, how bad was the tear? That's always the most important thing. Second of all, his ability to rehab and how well the rehab goes. Let's say let's just say for sake of argument that everything goes swimmingly. I mean, it all goes perfect. Then there's no reason why Derrick Rose cannot be the dominant player that he was when he left. Surgeries, these days, especially on the knees, are pretty solid, and I think that what it probably will do, if everything is good, and as I say, it depends on the size, the tear and how bad it was. He should be able to regain his ability to play at a high level. Now, the downside to this is normally when things like this happen, it does lend itself to the possibility of, maybe a career that's not quite as lengthy as one might expect it to be, because there's always when you're on that one knee that's bad, your other knee begins to take a little bit more of a pressure on it. So my guess is that if everything goes well, he'll be fine. But will he have a long career? I don't really know. It's hard to tell. But tradition at this point in time, or I'm sorry, not tradition, but looking into the crystal ball, track records prove that they play well for people can come back and play well, but it does decrease the length of your career.
Right, and hi Jim, it's Raphael. Thank you for joining us
Hey,
as
Raphael.
always. And
always a pleasure.
Good point. Wes Welker from the Patriots, Week 17 tore his ACL and was back the first week, and not only was back but led the league in catches that year and was a Pro Bowler. Tom Brady, same thing, was out for the season, came back the next season, Week 1, and was a Pro Bowler. So, as you mentioned earlier, knee surgeries, if you have the right surgeon, you have the right person helping you with rehab, and most of these professional sports teams do. I think Derrick Rose will be fine. He's still a young guy. It's worse to happen when you're older. When you're younger, your body can heal quicker.
Right.
So he's still 23, 24, so I think he's going to be fine. The one concern, though, is for the Bulls, because he could miss, theoretically, most of if it does end up being 10, 12 months, he's going to miss the season next year. So the Bulls are going to have some issues here, because they need a guy who can – Earl Watson's not going to do it, or C.J. Watson's not going to do it, Like, they need a guard who can help them get the ball to Noah and Boozer. So they might have to figure something out, because – they don't want to. You don't want to just give up on next year before next year started, and especially after.
Well, that might be where Steve Nash goes.
Interesting.
Wow,
That's a first time. Yeah, that's a great point.
I haven't heard that yet.
Then
Great
when
point.
he comes back, then you team up Derrick Rose with Steve Nash, Carlos Boozer, Noah. Wow, Ronnie Brewer. That sounds like a very.
I mean, that might be a compelling fit for Steve Nash.
Right, except that's a great point, and then he'll know that when playoff time arrives, he'll have hopefully a healthy Derrick Rose by his side, and that's something that I'm sure Steve, as being a two-time MVP, would be very excited about. That's a great point, Jim. We've talked about the Knicks, the Heat, even Phoenix, but no one has mentioned the Bulls, so that'd be interesting.
And so that Derrick Rose and Steve Nash both have in common, they both have won MVPs and have never played in the NBA Finals.
Right.
And,
they also have the same agent.
The same agent, so very well could happen. They could maybe next year both go to the NBA Finals for the first time in their respective careers.
That would be that'd be great, and I think Steve Nash would love to work with the Bulls coach Tom Thibodeau, who came over from the Celtics. So
and by the way, they're also I believe the only MVPs never to play in the NBA Finals, because they're not.
Right.
There hasn't been. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, just say there hasn't been that many NBA MVPs, because only one per league, and most of these winners have won multiple. Jordan won 5, and Kareem won 6, and Magic won 3, and Bird won 3. So it's very few MVP winners, and these two guys have never played in the NBA Finals.
True, and I think that if you're looking for a fit to do what Steve Nash has for his entire career done, Chicago fits him much better than some of these other places.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he can just. I think the Knicks talk for him going to the Knicks is ludicrous, and I think that he should have his agent release a statement saying that he's not going to do that. I don't know why he'd want to go to the Knicks and be under the Dolaners. I just don't see that. And the Heat, I don't know. Does he want to be the fourth guy, the fourth fiddle after the big three? I don't know if he'd get along with those type of guys. That doesn't seem like the Bulls. Actually, really thinking about it, seems like a very interesting thing. But moving on now, Jim, I wanted to talk to you about, of course, a big news in college basketball. Virginia Commonwealth University will be leaving the Colonial and will be joining Butler in the Atlantic 10 and Xavier. So this is, for college basketball fans out there, this is big news. And, of course, it is May, so maybe not a lot of people are talking about it, and that's why I'm going to talk about it right now, because that's what I do. But this is great for the Atlantic 10. I mean, wow, I know Temple, I think, is leaving, but still, Butler, Virginia, VCU, Xavier, Dayton. I mean, that's a great one. Those are great basketball schools. So what are your thoughts on VCU?
Guys, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear us now, Jim?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, Jim.
great.
Did you hear what I was saying about college basketball, or did you?
You're talking about VCU. I understand that.
Right.
And,
So I was just
actually, I do believe with Shaka Smart, it was a good move because financially, the A10, because it's a basketball league, market themselves as a basketball league, and financially, it's better. And the biggest problem that the Colonial Athletic Conference was having, and by the way, George Mason came within 2 votes of joining that league as well. They stayed in the Colonial Athletic Conference. But what it does do for them is, as you guys know, the A10 has been a multi-bid league, and that's been a problem for the Colonial Athletic Conference. So to get into the conference where basketball is a much higher priority is good for Virginia Commonwealth as well as it is for Butler. But financially, it's far more beneficial for the universities to be in the basketball centric conference.
Right, and I just think it's going to be so cool to see Butler and VCU and Xavier battle it out for the championship in the Atlantic 10. That's going to be a very, very, very deep conference. And there's also a lot of great schools in the Atlantic 10 that aren't necessarily powerhouses, but also have good programs. I was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard this, but a school like Dayton, which has had some great success. Their coach, Brian Gregory, now is in his second year, I believe, at where's Brian Gregory? I'm blanking on where he is, but he had a great thing going there. So a lot of great teams in the A10. I just can't think right now off the top of my head, but a very solid.
George Washington had some,
right,
some solid teams in the A10. So, I mean, I think that it's a good move, and it's definitely a shot to the Colonial Athletic Conference because VCU was, one of their key participants. But it's every man, one down and up. The next man up. So. The way the conferences are moving these days and teams are moving from conferences, it's certainly, it's all about the money, and it's all about what financially is beneficial for your conference and for your university. In the case of VCU and for Butler, financially, it made all the sense in the world.
Right, and now the Colonial will still have. Old Dominion and George Mason, so there's still going to be a solid conference. I mean, there's still
Drexel.
And Drexel, right. Those are 3 big schools, and same with the Horizon. I think Ray McCallum is staying at Detroit. I need to check on that. But Detroit, if Ray McCallum is staying, this should be a great team next year. Valparaiso, Green Bay, Cleveland State, right. These teams are used to winning. Wright State a couple of years ago was battling Butler. So it's kind of a win-win maybe for everyone because now another team can get exposure in the Horizon and another team can get more exposure in the Colonial. Next thing I want to talk to, Jim, Bernie Fine's wife apparently will be filing a lawsuit against ESPN for all the stuff that happened there. We've been following the story. Of course, we've had Bernie Fine on our program before. It was a nice interview. A lot of weird things coming out of that story, Jim, that they're lying. One of them's going to jail for I believe, molesting a girl or sexual assault, something like that. So these guys aren't the most trustworthy guys. The story's kind of. At first, I was believing all the guys and what they were saying, but in the last couple months, I'm starting to maybe get a little uneasy about that and start to feel bad for Coach Fine, who had been with Coach Boeheim for 30 years plus, and now, of course, he just got hired in Israel. That's also a big story in Israel. He got hired by Maccabi Haifa, by Jeffrey Rosen, to be a consultant for the team. But what are your thoughts on this whole affair? It's been going on now since November, and it doesn't seem to end, and now Lori Fine will be suing ESPN. So what are your thoughts, Jim, on the whole story and everything?
Well, I think that it's very important that, a lot of this stuff was done without any, it's not like he was brought, went to trial, And I think that what needs to be done is that, there's always all kinds of, there's innuendos, there's all kinds of stuff out there. Is the truth, what is truth? What, are we as journalists sometimes, take the lazy way out, and you listen to people and you hear, what they say, and they're like, suddenly these are such credited, witnesses, and all of a sudden 2 weeks later you find out they're not so credited. And I think that, in the zeal and the rush to get something on Coach Fine, that there was a lot of sloppy journalism done. And I think that right now that the suit against ESPN is simply just an opportunity to prove that, all right, if you have these witnesses and you have these people that, show us how you came about researching to make sure that these people were, quote unquote, credible witnesses. And I think that, so much of this came so long after the situation allegedly happened that, I do believe that it was kind of an odd circumstance. And as we all recall, it came right on the heels of the Jerry Sandusky situation at Penn State. And so, there were so many oddities to this story, and it just raveled, it came apart in large part as more people came out. It just seemed like the story just wasn't holding together. And that's not to say that there isn't bits of truth to this. I don't know, and I think that I guess what I'm saying here is because of the lack of quality research being done by the folks who were chasing it down, including authorities who obviously said, well, there's not much we can do about it because, it was beyond the statute of limitations. There really hadn't been, if there were reports to be filed, they should have been filed years and years and years ago, not, 3 months after the Jerry Sandusky situation broke.
And that's that. If you recall, Jim, that was kind of Jim Boeheim's rant at that news conference, saying that these people are just doing this because the Sandusky thing just came out, and that was this was October, I guess, and so he was saying that he was very mad and that his friend would never do that. Of course, 2 days later, he retracted that comment and apologized to the families and all that. I think because.
Well, that's because Syracuse University made him.
Right, exactly. No, you're right. Syracuse University made him because, well, we know why.
They didn't want to get sued, to be
exactly.
honest.
They didn't
Let's be honest here.
No,
Syracuse University, pulled Jim Boeheim in and said, look, Penn State's going to get sued for, $1 bazillion before we, before you go running out there and defending Coach Fine, maybe what we should be doing is, circling the wagons just to make sure we don't get in trouble. And that, unfortunately, that's what cost Coach Fine his job. Is again, all of these allegations, there has not been proof brought to any of them.
Right.
And by the way, we have not seen the trial yet of Jerry Sandusky. So, as much as, and believe me, I'm not saying that I'm not siding with Coach Sandusky. I'm simply saying that everything about the Coach Sandusky situation at Penn State hasn't really been brought to trial yet either. So, everything is an allegation, and we would hope that, people are innocent until proven guilty. And if Coach Sandusky is proven guilty, then he should absolutely, be prosecuted to the maximum letter of the law. And the same should be of Coach Fine. But at this point in time, to the best of my understanding, there's not been any lawsuit brought against Coach Fine.
Right, and it's going to be, nothing. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Coach Fine handles his new position as assistant advisor, something along those lines, to Maccabi Haifa, which are owned by billionaire Jeffrey Rosen from the United States. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. And it's, I don't want to say it's nice that he got a job because we'll see in a couple of years when the truth comes out. If he is innocent of those things, it's good that someone gave him the opportunity. If he's not, then obviously not. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
But we don't know, and that's
exactly.
the odd situation. We simply just don't know.
All right, Jim, last question before we let you go. Wes Welker was given the franchise tag by the New England Patriots. A lot of players really resent when that happens, but he seems pretty happy about it. He tweeted that he has 9.5 million reasons to go to work, get a $9.5 million tender offer. So what are your thoughts? Wes Welker is such a big part of the Patriots offense. In fact, in Super Bowl 42, when they lost to the Giants, had the Patriots won, I believe Wes Welker would have been the MVP of the ball game. Really, really critical to the Pats. So what are your thoughts? Is that a fair offer for Wes Welker?
Well, yeah, first of all, when someone there are a lot of different teams who handle franchising, and the Patriots and for instance the Baltimore Ravens franchise Ray Rice. Okay, if you assume that that you have a number of free agents, as both the Patriots and the Ravens do, that they had to, plus they have cap issues. Both teams have cap issues. What do? Well, you basically franchise a Wes Welker and you franchise a Ray Rice because you can do two things. That gives you a year to work with them and structure a deal that becomes both friendly to the player and friendly to the team. And I think that's where the Patriots are hoping to work. I mean, the Kraft family, with New England and the Bisciotti family with the Ravens have always been very friendly to the players. And I think that, that's the difference. If a guy gets slapped with a franchise tag and, the ownership has been less than player friendly over the years, then, they get upset. If they get slapped with the franchise tag with the knowledge that the organization is working to get them their long-term deal, but they have to do this at this point in time in the best interest of trying to find, for instance, if they got a deal with Wes Welker that was like 7 to 10, one of these 5 to 6 year deals at, let's just say, for the sake of argument, $60 million or something like that, with a $25 million upfront signing bonus, that could possibly mess their cap situation up to the point where there's 3 or 4 position players that they would have to let go and, use backups. Well, in this case, Wes Welker, by being franchised, it lessens the dent against the cap and allows them to, as I say, work on a long-term deal with Wes that is friendly to him and is friendly to the team. So in the best interest of the team, I think Wes Welker understands that, as he said, being paid $9 million is hardly being, pushed into indentured servitude. And, at the end of the day, he will have Patriots around him that will make the team better because he was franchised. So I do believe that it all depends on the team and how they've handled the players in the past. And as I say, in the case of Wes Welker and the Patriots and Ray Rice and the Baltimore Ravens, they've always proven that they've taken care of their own and certainly have taken care of their players. So I don't think either guy in this case is grousing about it because they realize it's in the best interest of their career in the long run and as well as the team in the long run.
And basically anyone in Israel is a default Patriots fan because of what the Kraft family has done here in Israel. Very generous with their money and their time. Of course, Kraft Stadium here in Jerusalem is great host of football for the IFL. And I really wanted the Patriots to win, not just because of all that, but because of Mrs. Kraft as well. And I hope this signing will push them over and they get the victory. They haven't won a Super Bowl since Super Bowl 39. It's been 7 years.
Painful.
People forget that because of the almost undefeated season, but it's been a while and they're due.
And this is the last thing that they've done a great job in the offseason. They signed Joseph Adai last week, the ex-Colt running back who's capable of being good if he works hard. I don't know. He hasn't had a good season in a while, but he's a great running back, or used to be. They've got Brandon Lloyd, who in 2010 led the league.
I will tell you that Brandon Lloyd,
right,
if he is anywhere near as good as he was when Josh McDonald had him in Denver,
McDaniels.
That'll be the steal of the century.
Right. I mean, he had I was looking at the numbers, Jim, last night. He had, I think, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns.
77 catches for 1,475 yards.
There you go. Jim Williams has the stats for us.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so he's a downfield threat. That's been the problem. We've had the tight ends, Gonzalez, and of course Gronkowski, and we have Wes Welker for the short game. But Deion Branch is too old to run down the field now, and the long threat is something that we really could use. I'm a big Patriots fan.
Well, Brandon Lloyd has two things that is necessary. He's got the speed,
right,
which is amazing. He also has the size.
Absolutely.
So you've got a guy who, has a sprinter speed and, has a basketball, vertical leap. So you can only imagine that Tom Brady is dreaming of, long passes and long fades, 10 or 15-yard fades into the end zone where Lloyd will go up and get the ball. So those are the kind of things that he can do under the right circumstances. And I think that the only reason he's there is because Josh McDaniels, felt that he could resurrect his career. And if anyone can, he certainly could do it.
Well, again, and we certainly hope he is able to resurrect his career. Jim, we appreciate the time here on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we look forward to you coming on next week.
I look forward to it as well, and seeing the Patriots and the Redskins in the Super Bowl wouldn't be bad.
That wouldn't be bad.
RG3 all the way, right?
Yeah, you never know.
RG3 all the way.
Yes.
All right, guys.
All right, Jim.
Well, next week maybe we'll talk about Strasburg and his use of Icy Hot, which kind of a problem yesterday.
Yeah, that's not good.
All right, we'll do that.
All right, sounds good. All right, Jim, we'll do that next week. Have a good one.
All right, boys. Take care, and it's always a pleasure.
All right, be well. All right, that was Jim Williams from the Washington Examiner. That's going to conclude our show tonight here on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. But before we conclude real quickly, Raphael, give us an update about some of the guests coming on in next couple of episodes.
Yeah, we're going to have an interesting show tomorrow. Tomorrow, Tzvi Twersky from Slam is going to come on. We're going to break down the NBA playoffs, which will be fun. We're going to have Ari Bluestein, of course. A couple of great guests tomorrow. Some interesting guys that you probably haven't heard of, but young guys in the broadcasting career who are hoping to make a name for themselves. So that should be a fun show. Next week, we're going to have the Maccabeats on, which is going to be very exciting for our Jewish listeners. Even our non-Jewish listeners, Ari. A lot of people have listened to their hits. The one that they took from Dynamite, I put my latkes, and I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to sing for you guys. But they've millions of hits on YouTube, so we're going to have them on. We're in the process of working out a special treat. We won't tell you about it, but we're going to hope it works out. Mark Stein will join us the following week, and Tommy Smith. So those are two great guys from ESPN. And Simi Rager will be coming in the studio again. So that's always fun, right, Ari?
Absolutely. There was a blast the last time we had him on. And I want to thank everyone who came on today's show, as it was a blast as well. I want to thank Mark Silverman from New York, giving us a breakdown of New York sports. NBA TV, Jared Greenberg, ESPN SportsCenter anchor Bram Weinstein, Clanari Carter, our ISR Southern correspondent, and Jim Williams from the Washington Examiner. Stay tuned for more great programming here on Israel Sports Radio. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.